Happy Friday and welcome to another episode of Mavens of Manufacturing. I'm really excited to be speaking with Olivia Morales today. Hello, Olivia. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming. And to anyone who's tuning in, feel free to drop your comments and questions below, and we can try to pull those up during our conversation. But to start off, Olivia, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and the company CESMII that you work for?
Definitely. So my name is Olivia Morales. I'm a solutions architect here at CESMII. CESMII is the Clean Energy Smart Manufacturing Innovation Institute, which is one of the Manufacturing USA institutes tasked with democratizing smart manufacturing. So I mostly focus on the technology portion. I have a history or background in software engineering, computer engineering, within the industrial automation space.
Awesome. So is CESMII like one of how many institutes that are focusing on clean stuff, or how does that?
So CESMII's the one that's specifically focused on the clean energy portion.
Gotcha.
The different Manufacturing USA institutes have different focuses, and they're funded by different arms of the U.S. government. So CESMII is funded by the Department of Energy. But they all have sort of the same-ish mission, which is to enable manufacturing in the United States.
Gotcha. And then how long has CESMII been around for?
So I've been part of CESMII for about 2 years now, and CESMII's been around for at least, I think, 5 years before that.
Gotcha. So it's considered probably a startup then.
We're a small group. We wear a lot of hats. It's got a startup feel, maybe without some of the intensity of a true startup.
Yeah.
Because we have we also work with, the Department of Energy, which is not quite startup.
Right. That's been around for quite some time. So, at a more personal level, how did you get involved with software engineering? Because your background, you're from Rockwell Automation, and then you went into CESMII. So was software engineering something that you always wanted to pursue growing up, or how did you get involved with it?
Not at all. So I had some exposure to software through my father. He worked in tech, but I really didn't know anything about engineering when I, throughout middle school, high school, even at the beginning of college, I didn't really know what engineering was, but I always liked physics and math. So I just decided to go into engineering, apply to engineering schools. I figured if I didn't like it, I could always switch out and do liberal arts or something. But within the first year, I kind of fell in love with it. I started with it as a mechanical engineer because I like doing stuff with my hands. Like I said, I love physics. And then I took an intro to computer engineering class, and something clicked with the Boolean and transistor logic. So that sort of set me on this path of computer engineering, focusing on microcontrollers, embedded software. And then eventually when I joined Rockwell, I landed in a software engineering role, and I've been doing a little bit more of the software side since then.
Nice. So then how would you define a solutions architect? Because when I met you, that's the first time that I've heard of that job title. And I'm just curious to know, is it an actual software engineer, or is there something more added to it?
So when I think of software, a software engineer is building the software, so writing a lot of code. And then a solutions architect sort of creates the overall technical vision for a specific solution. And so it takes that business problem into mind. There is going to be some coding involved, but not necessarily. Part of that job is identifying technologies, bringing different technologies together. So within the tech industry, different solutions architects are going to have different focuses and different skill sets that may be more software development oriented, maybe more understanding of the technology and bringing other software solutions together.
So you're focusing on smart technology with CESMII, and can you kind of just break down what that means for anyone who's tuning in who might not really understand it? Because I mean, when I think of smart manufacturing, I'm thinking of, different technologies communicating with one another and exchanging data, and then companies being able to take that data and help them improve like their processes or their operations. So can you break it down how CESMII is defining it and what you're doing to basically help democratize it for companies?
Yeah, you kind of had it spot on when you said that it's about using modern technology and being able to make decisions with the data coming out of that technology. So smart manufacturing is integrating technology at all levels. So OT layer, at the operations layer, all the way to the IT level in the cloud, making sure that you're getting the data, getting information to the right people at the right time, getting the right data, so that people and other services or applications or other systems can make decisions based on that data. So it's not to say that what exists currently or legacy systems aren't smart, but the idea of smart manufacturing is also a bit of a cultural concept. So this idea that we need to kind of get away from some of the old thinking around data silos and vendor lock-in and start working together to build some of these technologies and standards.
Gotcha. So do you know what some of the challenges are for the companies that you're working with in terms of trying to integrate smart manufacturing within their processes?
Yeah, so I think there's been a big shift in the past few years that has really made a big impact on the cultural problem. So for a long time, it was, and it continues to be, a cultural hurdle to get through first. And once you get past that, it's focusing, the next hurdle is the perceived complexity of technology, being able to, we work a lot with manufacturers, especially small and medium manufacturers, and working with them to show that the technology isn't going to be as complicated or difficult to understand. And some of what plays into that and what CESMII is doing is focusing on the education and training so that that perceived complexity doesn't seem so complex anymore, and that we can get a quicker path to actual value and outcomes from using the technology instead of spending years on a pilot program that never actually becomes reality in a plant, or investing a lot of money in a system or a set of technologies, and then when something new comes around, it's not compatible.
Okay. Yeah, because there's a lot of different types of technologies available that manufacturers can pick from. So is it fair to say that CESMII is kind of that portion of it where you're offering consulting a little bit to help them choose which options are best for their systems and their processes? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and part of my role as a solutions architect working with our members is helping them identify some of those technologies. So helping them get started on implementing, like getting their data flowing and being able to do something with that data, contextualizing that data, making sure that it's labeled correctly, and then following correct standards so that they can reuse that data with other applications. So yeah, CESMII is member driven. So we have manufacturers who are members, we have technology providers who are members. So CESMII is working to kind of bring all these people together. So connect the right people, right manufacturers with the right experts or the right standards, and to sort of define a path to that smart manufacturing goal.
So can you break down what a day in the life looks like for you as a solutions architect? Because I'm always interested in hearing, what sort of skill sets you need to be successful in your position, and then just giving a window to the next generation to show them, it's not about all of the dirty, dark, dangerous things that, yes, still exist in this sector, but there's other things that you can do that are highly technical. So how does a day in your life look like as a solutions architect?
So I would say every day is a little bit different, but there are a couple of key things that are key themes that run across, my days and my weeks. I'm working with the different project teams. So CESMII funds projects with manufacturers and technology providers, and I work with them to define that project, that implementation. So that's emails and meetings and research on the technology, because part of my job is to stay up to date on different technologies. I don't know all the technologies that exist. So I have, so part of that is learning,
Yeah.
leveraging experts in my network to teach me about different technologies, and then bringing that and translating that into something that is digestible to the manufacturer or technology provider that CESMII is working with. I also write code still, so I'm not building software in the same way that I once was, but I'm writing demo code. I'm using the technologies that CESMII is sponsoring to build demos that are compelling, that tell the smart manufacturing story that we want to resonate with our members. I also do a little bit of tech support. So we have a DevOps arm of CESMII where different manufacturers and project teams can reach out to CESMII. So I'm working through tech support stuff with a variety of technologies. And then the last part is being able to communicate all of those things. So being able to communicate the technology vision and the very technical portions, being able to understand and understand the audience's perspective. So every manufacturer and technology provider has a different perspective and a different comfort level with technology and manufacturing technology. So reading between the lines of what they understand and where we want to get them, and finding the least intimidating way to get them there.
Yeah. I was reading a report, I think it was actually a Rockwell automation report, where they were saying that over the last 2 years, we've gone through like 20 years worth of evolution in terms of technology, because it's always changing. So I find it fascinating that you have to continually keep up with that, because even today, tomorrow's technology is going to be a little bit different than what it is today. Like, it's always changing. So I would personally probably be a little overwhelmed with the amount of information. So I think you're almost like in a research type position as well too, where you're doing a lot of research and just continuously learning. So
yeah.
Do you typically have like a 40-hour work week, or does it fluctuate? Because I find that interesting as well too. A lot of people are like, well, how many hours do you work a week? And I'm like, I'm always working. Like, it's never ending. And there's times where I take breaks in between, but I'm a writer, so I always have to like read up on stuff. And is a solutions architect a typical 40-hour work week, or are there some times where you need to work on the weekends as well too?
I try really hard not to work on the weekends. I really, really like the downtime, taking vacations. So definitely value my free time. I would say I do usually work about 40 hours. It might give or take depending on what's going on. We have busier times, we got less busy times here at CESMII. And you're right, it can be overwhelming, all the technology, all the projects, all the people, and all the meetings. So setting boundaries and then working out systems to manage that work, right? Keep, whether that's prioritizing or making lists, so that I'm using my time efficiently without draining all of my energy.
Yeah. So we have a couple comments. I just want to make sure that we say hi to everyone. Muhammad, thank you for coming in and tuning in. He said this is a very important topic. And then we have Howard, informative dialogue. And then we have Vince, glad to be here. And then Hank, always happy to see Hank here. I hope your daughters are doing great. He calls them the junior board of directors, and they're so interested in STEM. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them. And then Vince, hope you're feeling better. I'm actually feeling a lot better. Vince, thank you for asking that. So in terms, like you mentioned, the challenges and the hurdles that you're helping manufacturers with through CESMII. So can you go into a little bit more detail about what those are and how CESMII helps resolve those who are trying to adopt digital transformations? So like what specifically are some of those challenges and hurdles that they're trying to overcome in terms of, you know, adopting these technologies? And then part two of that question, why is it going to be important to help democratize these technologies specifically for the clean energy industry? Because that's where you're focused on.
Right. So one of the main sort of overarching challenges that we're trying to address is this idea of getting away from proprietary closed technologies systems and moving more to, and, you know, data silos, no interoperability, everything is separated, and you have vendor lock-in. And then, you know, you have no application portability. So you can't be moving one solution to another plant because there are too many differences between the two, even though your process is the same. So what we're investing in is both concepts and specific technologies. So concepts like standards and having standard-driven technology solutions, and then technologies that leverage those standards. So applications, communication protocols. We have a smart manufacturing innovation platform that leverages all of that and gives context to your data. So making the problems and the solutions to the common problems more repeatable is sort of CESMII's way of addressing a lot of these problems. So another way that that's happening is by bringing industry leaders together with small and medium manufacturers, which make up the vast majority of manufacturing firms in the United States, bringing those people together to work together, because it's a sort of it's not a competitive thing. This is a situation that all across the board, all manufacturers and technology providers know is a problem. And if we work together, then it will benefit the entire industry.
Okay. And in terms of like getting those partnerships, what are some of the challenges that CESMII is facing? Because I'm assuming when you're trying to talk about, you know, all of us working together as a collaborative unit, there's some pushback because there's companies that don't want to lose their proprietary information, if that makes sense. So how are those conversations going? How do you convince, like, this is the best solution for us to be collaborative and this is what's needed to democratize smart manufacturing? How do those conversations go? Because I'm assuming that some companies are just like, no, I want to make my money and I want my solution to be the best solution and I want my solution to be the one that companies pick.
So I think it just comes down to framing it and then demonstrating actual technology integration and how that doesn't actually create a situation where, you know, you're at a disadvantage as a technology provider. So just because your solution or your technology is built off of a standard doesn't mean that you're at a disadvantage. It actually means that your solution will probably work with more customers, because if it's all standards driven and focused on repeatability and interoperability, your solution is going to work with more people and you're going to have access to more customers that way.
So do you have any tips for companies to get started right away, like on how to adopt certain technologies?
So it depends on where you're starting from. So I would say there's a much smaller percentage of greenfield manufacturers versus what we call brownfield, so a mix of old and new.
Okay.
So assuming you already have some legacy equipment, I would say it's really imperative to work with what you already have and enhance it by bringing it up to the smart manufacturing practices. Easy way to do that is to invest in some low-cost sensors, maybe an edge device that is collecting that data or then transmitting it to the smart manufacturing innovation platform. There are plenty of products and tools that you can leverage without throwing out what you have and without investing a lot of time in implementation. Now, this goes back to the cultural shift because there's still a perceived complexity. So that's where I would say reach out to CESMII or check out some of the CESMII resources or YouTube page where we talk about how to get started and give some specific examples of walk you through how to actually get started with some of these technologies and show that it's not, it doesn't have to be as intimidating.
Gotcha. Now, are there any specific places that companies can meet with CESMII to see some of these demos that you were talking about earlier?
Yeah, so we have a set of smart manufacturing innovation centers across the United States, along with some satellite innovation centers. So those are going to be places where we're demonstrating the smart manufacturing concepts and CESMII's technology or CESMII sponsored technology. And then we have an annual meeting once a year, which is something that you can come participate in, come meet us in person. We'll be talking about everything that we're doing. We bring our partners there. Our members show up. We will demo things, and that's a great opportunity to have some good conversation and see what's happening.
What about training opportunities? Is there any like necessary upskilling or training that people in different facilities need to go through in order to adopt these smart manufacturing technologies, or is that something that the facilities take on their own?
So the education arm of CESMII is very focused on providing and funding training programs especially within universities. So there's definitely resources available. It's not just on you as a manufacturer to figure out how to train your people. There's a lot of resources out there that can help you do that.
Gotcha. There is a LinkedIn user. I don't know why LinkedIn doesn't always show names, but our annual meeting will be held this year at South Tech in Greenville, South Carolina, October 24th through 26th. So thank you to whoever that is. I don't know who you are because LinkedIn's being stubborn, but
I wonder if that's Jillian. That might be Jillian.
Is it? Hi, Jillian, if it's you. Well, Olivia, this was so informative and such a great conversation. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience that we did not cover? If not, my last question is always on your biggest ask for our audience. So if there's nothing else that you can think of we didn't cover, what would your biggest ask for our audience be?
I can't think of anything we didn't cover, but I'll just plug the CESMII website or reach out on LinkedIn to me or my team. We love to engage with the manufacturing industry, obviously. That's what we are here to do. So reach out, and I'm happy to answer any additional questions or figure out what's next for you on your smart manufacturing journey. And then
get connected with you personally.
LinkedIn probably is going to be the easiest. Olivia Morales, CESMII. I'll show up, I think.
There's a few people, and Rob said that is Jillian. Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it. There's a few people that when I announced that you were coming on to Mavens today, they already complimented how great of a person you are. So you absolutely know your stuff. So anybody who's having problems with smart manufacturing, make sure to reach out to CESMII and Olivia because she's already got a great reputation among the manufacturing sector, which is cool to see. I'm glad to see that. Well, anything else, Olivia, that you would like to share with us other than what you already shared?
No. What was your last question? I think.
So if you had to ask for our audience, what would your biggest ask be for them?
So I guess This goes for anyone in the manufacturing industry, whether you're a Maven or like not even in the manufacturing industry yet, or even just interested in technology. Don't let your perceived notions or what you think is going to be too complex to tackle block you from actually doing something. Don't let it get the best of you. There's all sorts of resources available for you to look up or ask. So challenge that status quo and challenge what you think is possible, because you'd be surprised. All these things that I'm talking about are not concepts or technologies that I always knew about.
How did you get through that personally?
Whole lot of imposter syndrome, and just like recognizing that it's a slow process. So you can't gather all that information all at once. You got to take nuggets at a time, and things will click. And as things click, other things will click. And sometimes you got to ask for help. And sometimes you have to be okay with not knowing until you do know. And that's okay. So
I think those are good points, because I talked to I've talked to a couple guys who have expressed sensing that imposter syndrome, but it's been mostly women who have had it. And I'm like, why do we put so much pressure on ourselves to be like perfect, especially in this sector? Like, this sector is meant to experiment and trial and error, and it's okay to fail forward and not know the answers. And if you don't know the answers, that doesn't mean that you're less intelligent or dumb by any means. It just means that you're at a different spot in your journey. So I'm always interested in how different types of women get through that, because I've suffered from it, and I've had people like that. They weren't yelling at me. It was more like tough love, or they're just like, stop being an idiot. You're fine. You're supposed to be here. So are there any like mentors of yours that you want to shout out to that's like helped you along your way? Because I've had a great support team to like kind of smack me aside my head, not literally, but just with their words say, stop being ridiculous. You're fine. So any mentors you want to shout out to before I let you go?
I would say, well, my boss and boss's boss here at CESMII, Jonathan Wise and Harish, are both very supportive in that way. There's another, one of my coworkers, Luca, is sort of telling me the same thing you are all the time. Like, you got this, you know your stuff. So we got a very supportive team here at CESMII.
That's awesome. Well, Olivia, I just want to thank you again for coming on and talking about CESMII and what a day in the life looks like for you. Again, for anyone tuning in, make sure you reach out to her on LinkedIn and look up CESMII as well too. They have a really great website. It was easy to follow along, and I just appreciate that as a writer and a person that's always working with websites. And then make sure to check them out at the show that we mentioned earlier too. And thank you so much, Olivia. I appreciate taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Happy Friday, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Bye.
This episode of Mavens has been sponsored by Fresh Horizons Group. Fresh Horizons Group is a family-run company that was founded on the premise of helping organizations and businesses better tell their story through high-quality branded apparel and promotional items. Freshen up your brand by contacting Fresh Horizons today at freshhorizonsgroup.com.